Alright folks, this is another reaction video. It's your boy AJ Trip here. And this time this is the top 10 TV shows which completely changed the premise. So make sure you go ahead and just check this out.
Is there anything more difficult than boiling down your favourite TV show to a single sentence? Selling something like Mad Men to someone on the basis that it's just about advertising executives is selling it short. And just imagine convincing someone that a show about bright blue meth manufacture is a cultural milestone of the 21st century. Elevator pitching a modern TV show to a friend is a ball ache, since they chop and change the formula, characters and even the basic premise of the show over time. The first season of a long-running show can look completely different to how it looks now or by the time it ended. This list contains both those shows that no longer match their original summary and a handful of spoilers, so be warned. I'm Rich from WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 TV shows which completely changed their premise. Number 10. Friends. Irrelevant of having the most iconic and catchy theme tune of all time, Friends became a very different beast when the final season rolled around in 2003. The show originally portrayed that limbo between university and adult life, with the majority of the series revolving around the uncertainty of the future. But by season 10, everyone, probably bar Joey, were in their preferred field of work. Rachel and Ross were raising their little girl, Monica and Chandler were married and were looking to have kids of their own, and even Phoebe was settling down. They were no longer the immature 20-somethings of series gone by, but they were still the titular friends. That didn't take centre stage anymore. Season 10 was more about that grown-up life that at first seemed distant. Number 9. Doctor Who. The whole premise of Doctor Who revolves around reinvention, or regeneration to be specific, but that wasn't initially what Sidney Newman had in mind back in 1963. Originally, Who was to be an educational television programme, still with two school teachers gallivanting around with a madman and his granddaughter in a box, but not to get into scrapes in a vast fictional universe. With William Hartnell's health deteriorating and the popularity of the fictional antagonists, such as the Daleks, skyrocketing, the concept of replacing the lead actor through regeneration came about. Subsequently, the entire show regenerated around it and became the less educational and more terrifying sci-fi epic we know today. Number 8. Sabrina the Teenage Witch. The self-explanatory title became redundant in the latter few series of the cult classic comedy, surprisingly because she was no longer a teenager. Fresh out of high school and into college, the show almost completely revamped the supporting cast during this transition. Sabrina's aunts, who teach her magic through the first 6 seasons, were completely written out of the final 7th one, just like Sabrina's crush Harvey for a while, her high school friends and later love interests. While something like Buffy the Vampire Slayer wasn't dependent on the teen drama of its early years, Sabrina suffered outside its comfort zone. The move from ABC to WB did nothing to ease the change, and the tone of the show never matured alongside Sabrina's character. Number 7. Borgen. The Danish political drama Borgen begins as a chronicle of the newly elected female Prime Minister's attempts to balance her family life with her demanding new role, and throughout the first and second seasons that's a fair description of the show's premise. By season 3, Birgitta? Is it Birgitta? There's a character in this show, I don't know what to pronounce it, so I'm going to let Google Translate do it for me.
Birgitta Nyborg.
There you go, Birgitta Nyborg. By season 3, by Birgitta Nyborg, that's Dutch, it's probably not Nyborg, it's something like that, I'm going to call her B, is retired from politics, and the series details her return, while the second protagonist, Katrine, ceases to be her distant mirror and joins B in the creation of her new party, while Casper, once B's spin doctor, fades into the background. Borgen's last series looks at the political system and asks whether you can achieve your goals without sacrificing your values, which is essentially what the show had always been about, but its protagonist is now an outsider. It's a great example of a show which now changed its premise without compromising its thematic consistency. Number 6. Angel. The sister show to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel began life as a supernatural detective show with a Monster of the Week format, sprinkled with some noir. It was a more grown-up version of Buffy, with Buffy herself still at college in this continuity. The show now is remembered as a heavily serialized dark fantasy series. The season 1 finale introduced the season-long arcs which would become the norm for the rest of the series, and by season 5, Angel and his team had defeated Wolfram and Hart, and the original procedural elements of the show were forgotten as it built to an emotionally wrenching conclusion. Number 5. Happy Days. Nice guy Richie Cunningham, played by Ron Howard, was initially coined as the main protagonist of the legendary sitcom Happy Days. It soon became apparent that bad boy Fonzie was edging into the spotlight as the breakout character of the series. Eventually, Henry Winkler received top billing alongside Ron Howard, who eventually left the series to pursue directing. Happy Days ended up revolving around Fonzie shenanigans. One iconic shenanigan in particular occurred in season 5, when Fonz quite literally jumped over a shark, and that, kids, is where the phrase "jumping the shark" was born. Don't say we don't spoil you. Number 4. Dollhouse. Similar to Angel, Dollhouse initially relied on self-contained episodes, which explored the missions undertaken by mind-wiped human operatives known as dolls, implanted with new false memories each week. The initial run of episodes were rather dull, with things improving as overarching plot elements were added. By season 2, a firm mythology behind the dolls was established, and the dolls were beginning to recover their individuality to face the sinister corporation Rossum. As the isolated weekly settings were abolished, the game-changing series finale drew close, revealing a post-apocalyptic future set barely 10 years afterwards. It had completely outgrown its initial premise, but the ratings had already diminished beyond repair. Number 3. Being Human. The original UK version of Being Human was marketed with the tagline, "A vampire, a ghost and a werewolf share a house in Bristol." It was a sitcom/supernatural horror mashup which worked brilliantly when the elements cohered, and still rather well when they didn't. Season 3 tipped the balance between the real world and the supernatural and went all out weird, introducing new characters and moving the action to Wales. Being Human is a show that managed to lose itself in the first series and reinstate itself with a new cast in the next. By the end of the third series, it adopted a more conventional dark horror theme, which the original tagline would not have suited at all. Number 2. Smallville. Smallville's early years alienated the comic book fandom, as they were expecting a more traditional approach to the Man of Steel's depiction, but instead got a high school soap with superpowers stirred in. It still did deliver on the promise of delivering a young Clark Kent finding his feet in Smallville. In the later seasons, Clark had moved to Metropolis, established a rapport with Lois Lane, become a part of the early Justice League, and was essentially Superman in all but a name. Smallville stuck firmly to the no tights, no flights promise, and instead drew on the deeper DC mythos. By the final season, it was no secret that this was a comic book series, and it hadn't set foot in Smallville for years. Number 1. Fringe. Fringe will be familiar to fans of The X-Files, as it's a series based around a small FBI team tasked with investigating strange phenomena. Despite average reviews for the early seasons, Fringe came into its own when it began exploring parallel universes, so much so that by season 3 it was alternating between 2, and each had their own variation of the title sequence. Eventually, Fringe threw alternate timelines into the mix, with evolved humans known as Observers and all. Dropping so much more into the lore of Fringe made it difficult for people catching on to the show later on to understand what on earth was going on, but for long-time fans, Fringe's evolution was a reward unto itself. And that's our list. What other shows became but an echo of its former self, for better or worse? Let us know in the comments section below. News, lists and articles await over on WhatCulture.com, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter. I'm Rich from What Culture, and I'll see you soon.
See, that's interesting. You see, I said Charmed, and I thought Charmed was one, because, you know, Charmed was about these 3 young, you know, girls in their mid-20s, 3 sisters, mid-20s, finding out that they were witches, and finding out about their heritage and all of those things, right? And they were, you know, set, but by the time that they had finished, they weren't about, you know, trying to learn about their powers and save the world. They were trying to, you know, have lives, you know, and things like that. They were trying to live, you know, and have, you know, that type of life, you know, not a life with a life. Not just based in magic and things like that. So that's why I thought Charmed would have been on the list. I'm surprised Smallville, because even though I understand what he says, it still was definitely just the same thing. It was about Superman's growth from young man to, you know, to being, you know, young Clark Kent into growing into Superman, and that's exactly what happened. Now they made and he's totally wrong. They did stay in Smallville, you know. It was they went back to Smallville several times, you know, the farm and everything like that. So especially that last season. So that was not true. But all right, post your comments down below. Tell me what you guys think, to what you guys thought of the list and anything like that. Was there any shows that they missed out on? So like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture.com too. Well, not WhatCulture.com. I think it's just called What Culture. Part of the What Culture Network. As we also know, What Culture Wrestling and things like that. So make sure you post a link, not post a link. Make sure you subscribe to them as well. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you so much for watching. This is your boy AJ Tripp signing off. As always, be good to each other, y'all. Be careful out there, and I am out.